And we welcome you into another edition here on the Mountaineer Hockey Network. Once again, is joining me is Coach Rew. Rew, how we doing today? All
Good,
dressed up and ready to go?
good, Cam. I'm good. Catching me at the end of the workday, but that's all right. I'm good. How about you, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great. I wish I was still all dressed up for you, but I wore that suit for too long today, so that went off immediately.
That's all right.
Uh,
I'm used to living in one, so
I guess I think now thinking about it, I think I will be too in about a year or so. So woohoo!
yeah.
But anyway, let's jump right onto the ice here. Before we even get into it, I mean, I see a difference from last year's team to this year team, whether it's the maturity level increasing or just the new chemistry. Something about this team feels different than last year's team.
I definitely agree. I think it's kind of night and day from what we were dealing with last year. We had some turnover from last year, and don't get me wrong, from just a perspective of the personalities we're missing. It's not like any of those guys are bad guys, but for whatever reason, this room seems to mesh pretty well, and everybody's here with a good head on their shoulders. There were a lot of things last year, um, you know, just a lot of different things that went wrong, but that was one thing we focused on coming into this year was trying to make sure we had the right mindset, and I think that there's a lot of difference from where we were last season. Good, most of it being very good.
Yeah, and we look at maybe one of the downsides last year was when you guys went up to Michigan-Flint, not really what you were expecting. You pick up two losses this weekend at Michigan-Flint, but really different stories from last year and this year. What impressed you about your team, going up against a really powerful Michigan-Flint team?
So that team's deep. I mean, they're a solid hockey team, and we kind of downplayed it a lot last week to try to make sure we had our guys with the right mental state. And I think sometimes you can get a little lost in your own expectations. So we talked about just focusing on playing through whatever adversity came our way. But that is a solid team. They're very deep. I think last year I don't have those score sheets right in front of me, but I think those guys might have put up two touchdowns on us in the weekend. And so to see us battle for 6 periods between the two games, and also to, have some rebounding. Um, we gave up a couple goals, and it wasn't like we let that turn into any kind of, snowball effect or anything like that. So, to see us battle the way we did for 6 periods, and to really stand up for a lot of time against that team was impressive, and something we were excited about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was two losses, but who stood out to you this weekend? A lot of guys, really looked like they stood out, especially number six. He seemed really impressive on that.
Yeah, yeah, we had some big performance this weekend, and really in the first 3 weekends of games here, we've had some pretty impressive work from a few freshmen. One of those being Liam Deasings, who you're referencing on D. 69 Brady Gardner. He's done a really nice job so far of really fitting in and bringing some physicality to the game. And then number 8 David Hollinger, he has really stepped up for us so far, and he's battling and really, he brings a lot of energy to that fourth line right now, and so we've been really excited about that. And then there's been a cast of freshmen that have got a game or a couple games, and they've made a nice impact. One thing that's really exciting is I really don't feel like there's any real weak links on this team. I feel if any of these guys are in a position to see some game time, I feel comfortable that they're going to come out and battle, and so that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week, which it didn't record, but beside the point.
It's
Um,
okay.
uh, it wasn't your normal lines that you usually run for the past two weekends. Maybe a little bit more this weekend against Michigan that you kind of ran the same lines. I mean, two non-conference matchups back-to-back weeks. What looks did you get from that roster, those lines, and who stood out to you the most?
So, it's an interesting kind of combination where nothing's in stone at this point in the year, but you've got some combinations you're pretty happy with, and then you've got some combinations that you're still playing with to see, what's going to be the best. So, like I said, I think that a few of those guys that were, are rookies this year have really cemented themselves in the lineup. And then a few of those other guys have really impressed us. The coaching staff's been really excited about what we're seeing from a lot of those guys. But I think that Stahl came in, 77 Stahl came in and he, made a pretty good impact. Chris Rao is Danny Rao's little brother. He has had some good games down the beginning stretch here. And that's not, not selling short any of the other guys that have seen some time, but we're definitely excited about what we're seeing, and we were playing with some lines, but that top line right now of Drew Allen, Luke Cassiola, and Hayden Snyder has been really pretty solid, playing two-way hockey right now. Unfortunately, at the end of the game, Stahl and Drew both were hurt, so they're a little, their situation's a little up in the air right now. Nothing super long term that we know of right now, but so that definitely is unfortunate, but you got to get these non-conference games in to kind of get some flow and get some of these guys getting in the rhythm and ready to roll. But it was intentional that we got a couple non-conference games in early here so that we've got a little bit of time to get our feet under us before we get into the bulk of the conference schedule.
And speaking of that, look at you leading me right to the bridge. We flip the page now. We look into conference play, two matchups, big matchups against Duquesne and IUP coming up this week. How do you build off Michigan Flint and then flip the page to a pretty decent Duquesne and IUP team that are coming to town?
So I think that like our big thing is we're focusing on just playing the right way and focusing on playing within ourselves and playing the game, the style of play that we're really aiming for. And a lot of that is kind of coaching cliches, focusing on the process, but those are all based in some truth. We're really trying to focus on what is in our control and leave make sure we're spending all of our energy and our bandwidth on that stuff. So I think just building good habits, noticing what we're doing right and making sure we're building on it and then correcting some of the things we're doing wrong. It's nice to have, 4 games here where we were able to get some film and really dig down and see, the places we were successful and the places where we really didn't do ourselves any favors. And I think coming out of this Flint weekend, we definitely noticed a couple spots where we definitely didn't give ourselves the best chance to be successful. So a lot of good to build on, but definitely plenty there that we can start working on. And so we were in the lab a little this morning in practice, and hopefully we got a good one Thursday night, and then we're ready for 2 big conference matchups.
Yeah, and then looking at the conference as a whole, I mean, obviously you play everybody, I think twice. You already have Case Western under your belt. Um, what do you see in conference play? How do you see your team playing out this year in conference?
So one thing that's exciting playing in college hockey East is that we've seemed to have gotten better. I was having a conversation with Duquesne's coach this week. We're pretty good friends, and so we chat on a pretty regular basis. And one
On
thing
game week?
yeah, just a little. I always check in with the coaches, make sure they're all good for the weekend. So we were just kind of back and forth a little bit. And one thing that's really exciting is that, there are some really good teams and some teams that need to do some growing. But I think that Duquesne was a first year team with us 3 seasons ago. And so I think that going into this year, it seems that both of our teams have really taken another big step in the right direction. And so I think if everybody's doing their best, one thing that's fun about the conference that we play in is that it could be anybody's game any week. So, you've got a couple of those teams that you really have to play up to, don't get me wrong. But I think that, there's a lot of parity there, and you go to the rink every night knowing that if you take care of yourself and you do, what you're out there to do, you've got an opportunity to win. So, I think if we can just make sure we get our legs under us and settle into the way we want to play, I think we have an opportunity just as much as anybody to, get into the playoff race here. And if that's the case, they always say you just got to get in and see what happens. So.
And I'm throwing you on the spot here because I just saw this question.
Mhm.
Friday night is our breast cancer awareness night. What does that mean to you, to lace up for such a big cause?
So I am fortunate that as far as my family is concerned, I really don't have too much experience, but just like anybody else, I mean, if you go just one layer beyond that, family, friends, and things like that, and part of my hockey family that, in my young coaching career, a good friend of my little brother lost his mom, who was a dear family friend of ours, to breast cancer, and just a terrible thing, and you can't really escape it. It seems like everybody has that in their lives, and so to bring some awareness and try to do our part's a huge deal.
Yeah, and going back to the ice here, what are your expectations? IUP is really good. Duquesne's coming in pretty hot. What do you look for this weekend?
I think just kind of, not to be cliche, but going back to the same thing, like building on the things that we have done well, trying to make sure we're playing simple, not kicking ourselves or getting in our own way at all. We've gotten ourselves in a little bit of penalty trouble, and it's not so much stupid stuff as far as like, retaliatory or anything, but just putting ourselves in a position where we're not chasing the play to be taking tripping calls or hooking calls, and just making sure that we maximize our line changes and things like that. Try to set ourselves up to play, to so on the line change thing, we want to get pucks deep and then make sure we're making line changes in a position to put the next guys out in a position to be successful. I don't think that we've done a great job so far this year, and especially this past weekend. I don't think we did the best job of making sure we're clearing our zone and getting pucks deep in their zone, giving our goalies an opportunity to get a breather. And so I think that's the big thing, is just minding some of that stuff. I think is going to be a big step for us.
Well, that'll wrap it up for us here on